Hello, welcome to 10 at 10. My name is Michael Ramage. I'm the director of the Cyber Education Research Center here at Murray State University, and welcome back to 10 at 10. 10 at 10 is brought to you through a partnership between Murray State University, Grow West, the Technology Council of West Kentucky, KY Innovation, and our local partner, Sprocket Innovation in Paducah, and the Kentucky Innovation Station in Madisonville. Episode 184, and then you can see my eyes moving around. I am trying to bring up the news of the day. Today, we're going to look at some stories. Really, this week, we're going to look at a specific area and type of story, because unless you're living under a rock or disconnected from the IT world, in which case you're not watching this anyway, you are seeing news about the CrowdStrike Microsoft outage. So I thought that today would be a good opportunity for us to talk about some of these things, what it means, why it matters, what it's what the impact is, why do how I want that to be the other way. Why are these things impacting us in the way that they are? So I thought I'd talk about that. And really, if you just look on the screen that you see here, you see a Microsoft issue, a Disney issue, an AT&T issue. And I want to focus on those three things today. That's really where I want us to spend our time. And so first, let me just dig into a little bit about what's going on with the Microsoft thing. A lot of IT folks were awakened in the middle of the night with some outages. Essentially, there was a software update that was sent down, and it was triggered through a piece of software with CrowdStrike, which is a third-party vendor, and I'll talk about them in just a second. But it was on Windows update systems, updated on Windows systems. When they did that, essentially, you ended up with what used to be the blue screen of death. It's not quite that anymore, but you end up with a system that doesn't work. There's a workaround. Basically, you can delete a file out of a directory and then it'll be okay. But you have to be able to get to that point. And there it takes a little bit of work, and there's reports that there's still some secondary impacts of other users even after you do that. But what CrowdStrike is a company that they do a lot of different things. They're probably best known maybe for their EDR platform, and basically EDR is endpoint detection and response. EDR is something that we've talked about on here before. Back in the day, we would have antivirus software, and every computer in your network would get a piece of antivirus software installed on it to detect malware. Now you get EDR type software, and that's because it's not just viruses that we're worried about. It's what's beyond that. What's the next thing that we're worried about? And EDR software not only can detect it, but then it takes all of the data, the traffic flow from your network or from your computer, and it takes it with the other computers in the network, and then brings it together in a SIEM, a security incident and event and incident management system, or SIEM, depending on how you want to call it, but that can correlate all that data together. CrowdStrike's really good at it, but it's a third-party piece of software. And one of the themes that you're going to hear me talk about today is that third party, whether that is a software vendor, whether that is a cloud provider, whether that is a software service that you're paying for, those matter in your security planning. Whether it is you buying raw materials from somebody that goes to a manufacturer that you ultimately buy a part from, or it's digital in nature, they matter. Those third parties matter. In the security world, and I know I'm going to go a little bit long today, so just bear with me. But in the security world, the very first thing you learn in security is that there's three tenets that you have to ensure. We call it the CIA triad. It's not Central Intelligence Agency, but we have to ensure the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of our data. Confidentiality meaning what is supposed to be secret stays secret. Integrity meaning that the data is only altered when it's supposed to be altered by somebody with authorization. And then finally, that it's available when we want it to be available. And, I saw someone post on Twitter overnight that they had a airport or airline boarding pass that was handwritten. Handwritten. Rarely do we see one printed now. A hard copy of one, but you definitely don't see them hand printed. Handwritten. So it's a challenge. There's an availability issue. Was it malicious? I don't think so. Maybe more information comes out and that changes, but it doesn't appear to be that it was done with malicious intent. But the end result is that because of a third-party piece of software that a lot of companies use, there's an outage. There's a cybersecurity incident, and there are folks that aren't able to get to the services that they need. Differently, hackers claim to have leaked 1.1 terabyte of Disney Slack messages. Null Bulge is the name of the group. Is a group that says it stole over a terabyte of data from Slack. Slack is a third-party software service that a lot of companies use to give internal communications, meaning that how do I message back and forth with my colleagues that work in other buildings or other offices or maybe even other countries. A lot of companies use Slack. You can share files with it. You can share messages, and it's a great place to do that. The problem is that because it's a third party, often we don't include that as part of our security strategy. We're like, yeah, we know it's there, but we don't care. It's somebody else. 10,000 channels, messages, files, a terabyte of data, which I would guess most people watching this don't have a terabyte of data on their computer today. That's a lot of data have been stolen. And it appears because of AI generated art. What does that mean? That means using computers to, I guess in Disney's case, probably to create animated movies or shows. If you go back even last summer, AI in Hollywood's been a hot topic. That was part of the writer's strike. Is how is that some studios were using AI to write screenplays instead of people. And anyway, so there's a lot of issues with that right now. The catch is there's hacker groups that are going to take a side and actively attack the side that they're against. We've seen it in the Ukraine-Russian conflict. We've seen it with the Gaza conflict. We see it all the time. Anonymous is a well-known hacktivist group that has attacked American interest, has attacked Russian interest, has attacked some companies that they deem wrong in whatever thing that they want to use. So you've got to make sure that just because it's not one of your physical assets or on software running on your computer, you've got to make sure that that's being protected. And perhaps AT&T is another great example of why this matters. So AT&T had phone records and text records of most of their companies that were stolen. Essentially, a hacker broke into a cloud server. First, they attacked a different company. I think it was Ticketmaster was first. But that same server or that same cloud provider, not necessarily the same server, but that same cloud provider also hosted data for AT&T. They were attacked. Call records, text messages were stolen between most of 2022 and a day or two in 2023. What was stolen was not the contents of your phone call, but when it called, how long it was, what number did you call from. Depends on if it was an AT&T phone or something else, how much information was in there, but a lot of information. Text messages, the contents of your text message was stolen. Now, let me be clear, and this is my technical explanation because I've probably answered this question 15 times this week. If you have an iPhone and your text message, your message has a blue bubble, It's not a text message. That's an iMessage. That goes through the Apple network. If it's a green message, a green bubble, it goes through the AT&T network. So I believe only the green bubbles were stolen, the text messages. The others aren't technically text messages, they're iMessages. So while those were not stolen, they're still going through a third party. And the point of this today is we have to trust third parties. Supply chain is such a big issue right now. We have to trust our supply chain, but we also need to plan accordingly. What if? We need to run through the what if scenarios if some of these things happen. What does it mean as a consumer about the data that was stolen? Well, it means in some ways not a whole lot. In other ways, it does mean a whole lot. Part of the answer is, what did you text? If you're texting something that's confidential, then that might be a problem. If you don't, then you may be okay. There's also a lot of data correlation that can take place. And I'm not going to go over it, but I'm going to link a TED Talk. This TED Talk here was from several years ago. I don't see 2012. I've shared it with a lot of people in a lot of different venues. It's really good. It's not talking about AT&T at all. It's Germany and Deutsche Telekom, but it's from an individual who wanted to get the data that the phone company was collecting about him, and his battle with that and what that data ultimately looked like, and he visualized that data, and it was compelling. He's not necessarily a great speaker, but his story is so compelling that you will want to watch it all. It's only about 10 minutes or so. So definitely worth your time doing that. But the whole point of all of this is that, and I've gone way long and I apologize, but there's a lot that's going on in the world today that we need to be focused on, that we need to think about from a security standpoint when it comes to our supply chain, whether it's a third-party cloud provider, it's a third-party software, or a third-party software service. We've got to make sure that that's part of our overall security planning, because it's going to impact us. It's a matter of when, not if. So we've got to make sure that we're thinking through that when we're doing our security planning. And it just so happens that there's 3 big stories this week that are talking about that. Hope you found this interesting. If you have questions and you want to dig into any of these topics, reach out. I'm happy to talk through these with you, answer any questions that I can, connect you to others that might be able to answer it better than me. But let me know. Thank you very much for joining, and I'll see you next week back here on 10 and 10. Thank you. Bye.